Welcome to the overview of the Koha tab. This is the main Koha page, which gives you some basic Koha history and lists some of the major features. The Koha tab is divided into three main sections: the migration process, technical support, and Koha community. We're going to go over each of these in turn, starting with the migration process. The main Koha migration process page is more just general information and things to consider, and clearly consists of mostly of different configurations. By this point you should know that you're migrating to Koha, but in case you haven't, this evaluation page is another opportunity to make sure that Koha is right for you. Demo sites. Demo sites are key. They provide an opportunity to do test uploads to make sure that your data is moving correctly, which is massively important in doing your data preparation. They provide opportunities to train your staff and/or patrons if you should choose. They help you create new workflows. If you're not doing a demo site, you really are handicapping your own migration process. So, data preparation. Most data preparation falls into two categories. Either it's data cleanup or it's data mapping. For cleanup, those are things like weeding records of either patrons or materials, which is a really good thing to do if you can, especially if you're using a vendor. Vendors charge by the record. So if you don't need a record, then why would you want to pay for it? And on the other hand, if you're doing it yourself, then that's just one more record that you're going to have to migrate yourself, and why put yourself through the trouble if you don't need to? Another aspect of data cleanup is making sure that all your records are normalized. Everything is in the same place, everything is done the same way. That makes it a lot easier for it to migrate correctly. And on the topic of migrating correctly, that is what data mapping is. Data mapping. So when I was talking on the demo site about test uploads, that's when you're going to do your data mapping. Data mapping is where you make sure that you know where the fields from your current ILS go in your new ILS. It's just making sure that you know where the data is going. The earlier you identify problems, the easier it's going to be. Customization. This is one of those aspects that is totally up to your own library. You know, some libraries do a lot of customization, others do very little. It's all up to you. One of the things you may have noticed is that for each of these pages there have been best practices at the bottom. These best practices comes from the interviews we did with librarians who had already migrated. It's based on what they did really well and what failed miserably. So they're really just there to give you things to think about and to hopefully make your migration process easier than theirs were. Training. There are multiple ways to approach training. Either you can do training with some kind of vendor support, or you can do it on your own. If you do it on your own, you can create your own materials, or you can use materials that are already out there in the community. If you're doing it with a vendor, you can either have them come to you or you can send people to them. I mean, there are all these different ways to do it, and it really just depends on, you know, how many staff you have, how much money you have to spend on training. And at this point, you've gone live. You've done it. Even at this point, though, we have some advice, so don't just skip this page. At all points, we have something to tell you. So the next is technical support. Technical support is one of the main issues identified by librarians when they're considering open source. So this section is really to make you feel comfortable and to show you what your options are. So first you have the Koha vendors. So this is a list of Koha vendors. It's just an alphabetical list. The only criteria to be on this list was, does the vendor support Koha? If the answer was yes, it went on. If they didn't, then it doesn't. There's no endorsement, there's no we're supporting this, it's just flat out a yes or no issue for us. So before you get on our case, yes, I know LiveLime is on this list. When we were getting feedback for the site, that was probably the thing that came up the most, and we know what the issues are and we understand, but at this point they are still supporting Koha, so they are still on our list. Next is Koha documentation. Documentation is very important, and this page really gives you the link for the official Koha community documentation web page or website, and gives you some of the key areas that are documented. Throughout this tab, you've seen different links to outside resources either on the right side or at the bottom. The Koha resources page has all of those resources in one place. So if a week after you go through, you remember that there was a outside resource that you really wanted to look at, and instead of going through the whole tab, you can just come here and look at them that way. The Koha community page. Open source is all about building the communities and sharing information and trying to support each other. And that's really what this section is all about. This is just the ways to participate in the community, but you have the blogs, there are forums, and then there are the social media, both Facebook and Twitter. These are also available under that resources page, forums, blogs, Facebook, Twitter. So we really have tried to make this site so that there are multiple ways to get access. The last thing I wanted to say is up here at the top there's a contact us form. If you have any questions or any suggestions for how to improve the site, please let us know. We are constantly trying to make the site better and more useful to you. That is the whole point of it. So, we encourage feedback. And that is all I have. Thank you for listening, and I hope that this helps you in your migration journey.